My paranormal experience is hard to come out and say. I saw what I think is a werewolf. It sounds kooky. I know it sounds kooky, and it's hard to talk about. This happened 26 years ago. It was 1996. And even then, I really didn't know what happened. And the only thing I could think of is, was that a werewolf? Did I see a werewolf? What I want out of this, the reason I'm doing this, the reason I contacted this program, my paranormal experience, I think on some level, I think what I really want is for someone to come out of the woodwork and maybe write something in the comments saying, yeah, I was there. I was in that area and I saw something very similar. I think that's what I really want out of this. I think I want that sort of confirmation. I think that would help me. And there is a possible way I might be able to find it myself. I actually called and reported this to the DNR. Maybe there's a record of that somewhere. It really wasn't that long ago. I'm sure they keep records of things. But this was 26 years ago. It was in Commerce Township, Michigan. And I want to be real clear where it was because I want people in the area maybe to remember that they had that experience in the same area. Commerce Township, Michigan is a suburb outside of the area. It's kind of a far out suburb, but it's fairly populated. It was populated then. And when I go to Google Maps to look at it now, because I don't live there anymore, but when I look at Google Maps, it's even more populated. There's whole neighborhoods there that have popped up in the last 26 years. But it is the northeastern corner of Commerce Township. And actually, the house right next door to me was White Lake, Michigan. I lived on Cooley Lake Road, and my house sat on Long Lake. I know that's a lot of lakes. My house was on the actual body of water called Long Lake. The road was Cooley Lake Road. I lived directly next door to the public access to the lake, the public boat launch. I lived right directly next door to that. Early one morning, guessing about 6-ish, I woke up and walked out of my bedroom. The house, it was an open floor plan, and I could look directly outside. The front door was a sliding glass door. Apparently, I didn't draw the curtains that night. In the wintertime, I rarely drew the curtains. And I think about that. I think, wow, it's bizarre that I didn't draw the curtains because living right by the public access, there were a lot of people, but they're out in the water. But I don't know. For whatever reason, I didn't draw the curtains. And I walked out of the bedroom and I glanced outside toward the lake. We had a little retaining wall there, about a foot tall. And there's a guy sitting there. And I froze. There should be nobody out there. Sometimes because I was on the water and especially being right next door to the boat launch, sometimes people brought their boats like very uncomfortably close to our dock. And some people are just, I guess, bad manners. I don't know, but they would just get close. But nobody, the whole time I lived there, ever came up on my lawn, much less walk all the way up. The water was probably 50 feet from the front door. The retaining wall we had was probably about 25 feet. It was probably about halfway, and it was about a foot tall retaining wall. It was early. It was light out, but it wasn't very light yet. So the light was tricky. And I tell myself all the time, I probably didn't see things clearly, but what I thought I was looking at was a man sitting there. He was mostly with his back to me. He was facing away, although I could kind of see the side of his face, but not well. I don't believe he was wearing a shirt. Now, whether he was wearing pants or not, I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell from where I was. He might have been wearing swim trunks. I couldn't tell if he was wet, if he had crawled out of the water, but it was extremely upsetting that there was a man sitting out there. He seemed thin. I think he was youngish. Like when I say youngish, probably younger than 40, over 18 and younger than 40. But he seems thin when I look at it in my mind. And usually by the time you're starting to get up in your 50s, you're getting thicker. I thought he was youngish. He was a white man with light brown hair, short hair, not a buzz cut, but short-ish. And that's about all I could make out. His shoulders were kind of slumped down. His head was kind of hanging a little forward. He looked tired or dejected, just sitting there. And I was very nervous immediately. I don't know if this guy had been partying on the lake all night, if he fell off the boat, if he was drunk, if he was on drugs. I mean, something was wrong if he was on my property and sitting right there on the retaining wall. That's right there. We had our picnic table, the grill, everything was over there. And I was just like, ugh. And, every nerve in my body was jangling like, oh dear, this isn't. And I remember thinking I wanted to go back in the bedroom and put something on. I didn't want to deal with this in my nightgown. I don't think I did. I think I just stood there. The bedroom light was on, but the rest of the house was dark. So I'm guessing that he noticed that the light was on inside that probably wasn't there. It seemed like there was a little movement my way, and I thought he noticed me. And this was back before we had cell phones. Well, did I have a cell phone in 96? I know I had a cell phone in like 99. I don't think I had a cell phone. I think we had just regular phones. If it happened today, I probably would have had my phone in my hand. But I just had this little shot of adrenaline because this guy is not where he's supposed to be. He didn't look like a big, scary, threatening guy. But, I'm a female. I'm in the house alone. At that time, I think I was 28 or 29. And, you don't want to tangle with a strange guy who's half naked, what it looks like. And I just wasn't happy about this. But it seems like he noticed me. Maybe he noticed the light. I think the light was still, the sun wasn't quite up yet. And I don't know that he could see inside my house, but he probably noticed the glow from my bedroom. But anyway, he kind of moved, he kind of shifted, and then he went down, and I couldn't see him anymore. This retaining wall held up a flower bed. You could sit on the edge of it, but there was a pine tree in there and there was some ground cover. I don't think there were any shrubs or anything. But the ground cover was somewhat tall, but it was only a foot tall. So I'm like, what? Where did he go? Is he lying down? Oh my goodness, what's going on? And I'm starting to be like, is this guy drunk? Did he pass out? And so I kind of lean a little more looking out, and I can see a little bit across the top of the ground cover. There's like movement where he was, and it's like long movement. Oh, that doesn't make sense, does it? I don't know how to explain, but it was almost like liquid movement. He was sitting there mostly with his back to me, but at a slight angle. And then he just went down. And then just this movement. I don't know how to explain that. And I never could explain that. I can't even hardly believe what I'm about to say. But then next thing you know, here comes on the other side of the retaining wall, a dog pops up, a dog head. I was like, what am I looking at? What do I see here? Is this a dog? Is this a man? And I'm just like looking. And then I think it was like the dog was laying down on the ground where I can't see. It's like he pulled himself up onto the retaining wall, and then he jumped right up on the retaining wall. And that's when I kind of flipped out, because it was a huge dog. This big dog jumped on there, on to the retaining wall. So I am aware that he was elevated a foot off the ground. So even a big dog is going to look bigger when you put him on a foot tall platform. But my eyes were just becoming saucers. I was like, this thing is enormous. It looked to me like a German Shepherd. It had a German Shepherd style head. It was a good looking animal. I love German Shepherds. I think they're gorgeous dogs. I'm really not a dog person, but I love wolves. I love huskies. I love German Shepherds. And the rest of them, I'm not one to admire dogs. I'm a cat woman. I like dogs after I get to know them, but German Shepherds, I always thought were probably the most beautiful. And this one was a beautiful specimen of a German Shepherd, except he was like supersized. He had a big head, big neck, big shoulders. I wouldn't say he had bigger legs or bigger anything than any other dog. He was just like so supersized. He had that curled tail, a big fluffy tail, lots of fluffy hair on his tail, and he was dark. I remember when I first looked at him, it looked black, but later I realized there were other colors in him. I actually rushed right up to the door when I saw that it was a dog and not the man. I stood there and looked at it for a second because I'm like, so what happened to the guy? Is he lying down, hiding? But it didn't seem likely because immediately thought, okay, I made a mistake. I thought I saw a guy, but it ended up being a dog because it was such a big dog. If he was lying there on the grass, you know how dogs lie on their tummy with their legs extended in front of them and their heads up. This dog, being as big as he was, it's possible that the size of his head, it looked like a man sitting there. That's what I was telling myself. Oh, and I didn't even say this. This thing was, gosh, and I'm just so embarrassed to say this because it sounds nutty, but the dog was as big as a pony. It was a monster. It was absolutely huge. But even though it was as big as it was, as soon as I realized that I was looking at a dog and not a man, I just went rushing straight up to the sliding glass door. I didn't open it, but I went rushing right up to the door because even if it was big, it was just an animal. And, you know, animals come on your lawn. They don't know boundaries. People know boundaries. Even when you're drunk, you know, you don't walk up on people's property. I mean, you'd have to be really, really drunk. Dogs have no boundaries. I wasn't worried about the dog. And there was a perfectly good sliding glass door between us. I wasn't thinking werewolf or anything at the time. It didn't occur to me that he would come crashing through a door or anything. So I lost all my fear and I just went rushing right. And when I was standing at the door at that point, I was probably 25 feet away. It wasn't very far. And he was up on the flower bed. In the flower bed, actually. And he was lifted up 1 foot off the ground. So he, however big he was, he seemed even bigger just because he was standing up there. But he was absolutely amazing, amazing looking. Even though I say he was amazing looking, he didn't look clean. His fur was kind of matted and it wasn't real long hair, but he certainly wasn't a short haired dog. He looked like a very dirty wolf or German shepherd, more of a German shepherd. When I look at pictures of wolves, there is a dainty quality to some of these wolves. And I've looked at pictures of timber wolves too. Even getting ready to do this program, my paranormal experience, I was Googling, looking at the wolves, and a lot of the wolves are not quite as muscular and just big as this thing was. It was more like a German shepherd. And really, the closest thing I can compare this beast to, there is a video on YouTube. You can find it. It's a video of a big black wolf. I think it's in Canada. I think it was Saskatchewan, but I could be wrong. There's a man filming his dog. It looks like a medium-sized dog, and the dog is barking at this black spot in the woods. And then out of the blue, this big wolf kind of lunges at the dog, and then he backs up a little, and then the dog keeps barking, and then the wolf lunges at him again. You hear the man's dog. Apparently, he grabbed a hold of the dog and tossed the dog in the air, and then the man who was holding the recorder, he was like, "Hey, hey!" And then the video cuts out. I think most people who follow Dogman or werewolf things have probably seen this video. And if you want to look it up, I guess, what would I Google? Just giant black wolf in the woods. But that's what this thing looked like. That's the shape of it. That's what it looked like. The wolf in the video on YouTube was black. And when I was standing at the window, I remember looking at the side of his body, and it wasn't quite black. There was gray, dark gray. There was brown mixed in there. Overall, he looked black overall, but there were some other colors mixed in there. He was matted. He didn't look super clean, but he was spectacular. He was absolutely spectacular. He was just, I've never seen such a big dog in my life. I just stood there at the glass. My eyes were saucers. My jaw was on the floor, and I'm just looking at him. He was sniffing this spot. The night before, I had cooked a steak, and I'd walked out there with my tray with the seasoned meat, and I put the meat on the grill, and then I took the blood and I dropped it into that bed. And that's where this animal was sniffing around, where I had dropped that blood the night before. Now, the man, what I thought was a man, he was sitting like right near it, but not in the blood, not on the dirt. He was sitting, the retaining wall was made out of timber, and it was probably 6 inches wide. And that's where he was sitting. So the animal was sniffing around, and he was maneuvering around. Didn't seem like he saw me. At one point, he was absolutely sideways to me, so I could see the whole side view of him, and he was sniffing the blood. And then he picked up his head and just stood there with his head up, standing on all fours. His tail was kind of up, and he just stood there and he really was absolutely beautiful shaped creature. And then I banged on the glass. I don't know why I did that, because he was just standing there for a while, and I don't know what I wanted. I wanted him to see me. I wanted to look at him. I don't know why I did that, but I banged on the glass, and he didn't like that, and he took off. He just spun on his heels. He jumped off the retaining wall, and he ran around to the other side of the house. I go tearing through my house, going from window to window looking for him, but he's a big animal. He was running fast, and he was gone. I went to the living room window, and then I went tearing into the bedroom, and I looked out the bedroom window, and I'm just trying to look, and he was gone. That was all that happened. But what do you do with that? What do you do with that? I was by myself, and so I'm just standing there in the house, and I'm like, what did I just see? What the heck did I just see? And I'm like, was I wrong? Was it really just a dog sitting there? And I'm like, how did I go from a white man with light brown hair to a big, dark, black, gray, brown, gigantic monster as big as a pony? I mean, how do you do that? I can see if I thought maybe it was a black man sitting there, and then it turns into a black dog. But why did I see a white man with light color hair? And so immediately I'm like, whoa, what did I just see? And I'm like, no. And then I'm like, whoever saw a dog that big ever? And I'm just very confused. I've got adrenaline all through me. I'm excited, and I'm scared, and I'm feeling all these things, and I'm looking out the window, and nothing's out there. And I mean, what do you do with that? There was nothing I could do. I just was like, okay. And so I get ready for work. I ended up telling my boyfriend at the time exactly what happened, because I knew he would believe me. I knew he would accept what I told him, although he did offer some thoughts. He told me that there are dogs called wolfhounds that are bigger than wolves, because I kept stressing this wolf was huge. It was huge. And I'm like, I think it was a wolf. I don't know if it was a wolf. He told me there's a thing called wolfhounds. Now, we didn't Google stuff then. It took me a while before I ever looked it up. Nowadays, boy, you can just look up anything. You can find anything. But I looked up wolfhounds, but it took me a while. I think it was a few weeks after that. Well, it wasn't a wolfhound. Years later, I actually had a client who had 3 of them, mastiffs, I think they're called. And they're huge. Yeah, she was a client for a while. I designed gardens. I didn't work for her for very long. She had a small yard and 3 of those monster giant dogs, and it was miserable to work back there. The place stunk. They had giant poo-poo. They were, I didn't work for her very long, but they were huge dogs. They were very intimidating, but this thing I saw was bigger than them. It was bigger. Also, mastiffs have skinny legs. They have kind of thick bodies, but their legs are skinny, and their heads are not shaped like that. They didn't have that beautiful German Shepherd head. They didn't have ears that went up. Although mastiffs have kind of yucky looking fur. I think it's yucky looking. It's kind of matted and stringy looking. This animal that I saw did not have beautiful fluffy fur like a wolf has or like a German Shepherd has. I think wolves are beautiful. I think their fur is pretty. I think even coyotes are pretty. A lot of people think coyotes look mangy. I think they're cute. I like them. But the mastiffs do have that kind of gross looking fur. And the dog I saw, in spite of his shape, his fur was not pretty. But it definitely wasn't a mastiff or a wolfhound. It wasn't a Saint Bernard. And I'm just, all the big species of dogs in the world, it wasn't any of them. And it was bigger than all of them. It was bigger than all of them. I have no idea what I saw. Oh, also, my boyfriend suggested that I call the DNR. And so I did. Now, when I talked to the DNR, I did not say anything about seeing a man first. I was like, I felt free to tell my boyfriend about it, but, I'm not going to call the DNR and sound like a kook and say, I think I saw a werewolf. But what I did when I called them, I remember being frustrated and trying to tell them what I saw without telling them. And I kind of kept stressing how huge the dog was. And I was kind of just saying things and just kind of letting it hang there. What I was hoping is that they would say, oh, yeah, there have been a lot of reports of this in the area. We're working on it. They didn't say that. They took my information, and I really don't remember it. I don't remember much of the conversation. So I had this experience. I called the DNR. I don't know how to explain what I mean. I tried to tell them what I saw without telling them. Again, hoping that they said, oh, we know exactly what you're talking about. But they didn't. They took my information. And then, what do you do after that? You see these things. And there's nothing to do. I remember being so frustrated. I wanted confirmation. I wasn't going to get it. There was nothing I could do. So what do? You go to work, you come home, you go to work, you come home. The years pass, you forget about it. Well, I never forgot about it. Every now and then I would think about it and I would ponder, what in the world did I actually see? But I never got any sort of satisfactory answer. I've always wondered what that was. So 3 years ago, I'm just messing around on, I think it was 2019. I know it was 2019. I'm on YouTube messing around. I find a video about Michigan Dogman. And I've never heard of the Michigan Dogman before. But of course, that caught my attention because, well, I saw a dog, I saw a man, and it was in Michigan. As it turns out, it wasn't a dogman. It was something else. Apparently, dogmen are completely different than what I saw, because I saw one dog and I saw one man. So I start watching lots of videos about Michigan dogmen, and I start trying to remember what happened to me. I don't even live in Michigan anymore. I told a girlfriend of mine this story, and she was like, really? And I had a ghost of a memory of writing this all down in a journal. I'm a big journaler. I write a lot of things, but I remember thinking, did I actually write this down? Honestly, I didn't even remember what year it did happen. So I go through, I find my old boxes and I pull out these journals. I have so many of them. Over a few weeks, it took me a few weeks to find it, because I would go through a few journals and put it down, go through a few journals and put it down. I finally found it, 1996, and I've got that journal in my hand right here. And it was July 19th that I made an entry, and I wrote the other morning around 6 a.m. So it was before July 19th that happened. And that's where I felt some, because, as time goes by, I just told myself, well, my memory was bad. And because I was scared, I thought there was a man. I just made the dog bigger in my mind. I told myself a million reasons why what I saw wasn't what I saw. But then I come back and I find this journal entry, and it made me it put chills down my back, because it's like, okay, everything I thought I saw, that's what I wrote. I wrote here, I saw a shape right outside near the door. At first I thought it was a man crouched down, but then I think it was a wolf. And then I wrote, I think, and I underlined think it was a wolf. I said it was huge, enormous, black, long, scraggly, huge head, long body. I called Oakland County Sheriff, police, the DNR, all that. But I don't want to write about all that, blank, blank. I just want to always remember that wolf. He ran away when I banged on the glass, totally disappeared. Let me stop there. I don't remember calling the sheriff and the police. I only remember calling the DNR because when my boyfriend suggested I call the DNR, I remember being surprised and thinking, oh, okay, I hadn't thought of that. So I guess I just called everybody that I could think of. I wrote that I didn't want to write about all of these phone calls. I remember being frustrated. So that's probably why I didn't want to write about it, because it was frustrating. Because how do you call up the sheriff, the police, and the DNR and tell them you saw what you think you saw? It made me feel stupid. But I felt like, well, first of all, this was such a huge animal. I figured somebody had to see it. I didn't know if it was dangerous or not. If this was even a little bit an aggressive animal, as big as it was, I mean, what if you had a little kid? Coyotes can run off with toddlers. And I mean, what in the world could this monster do? I felt like it was important to call them, but then you feel stupid to say, yes, there's a dog out here as big as a pony. Apparently, I was very moved by this animal because I wrote, I always want to remember that wolf. And I also wrote that I was afraid to go outside at nighttime. I wrote that I carry a shovel or some weapon with me. So I was alarmed for a while, but I wasn't alarmed for that long. I do remember being very aware if it was nighttime out there and choosing not to go outside even when I normally would have. I used to love to sit on the dock at night. I don't think I did for the rest of the summer, but eventually I did. I did start going out again and I wasn't worried about it. 96, 97, 98. 2 years later, we moved away. And I have many memories toward the end of just being outside at night, swimming at night, looking at the stars at night. I guess I lost my fear. After I never saw him again, I wasn't worried about it. Here's something else I wrote in this journal entry. The funny thing is, I think it could be a werewolf. Why not? Next week will be a full moon, and it will be the biggest, closest full moon of the year. But it was daylight when I saw it. And then I wrote, what a year. Comets, leap years, wolves in my yard. There was a comet visible that summer, and I don't remember what it was. It seemed to have like a Japanese name. There were 2 comets, 2 years in a row. But yeah, I just wrote about it. I wrote everything that I thought I remembered. So that was confirmation to me that I wasn't making it up over time. And I don't know what to do with this. I don't know what to do with this memory. I don't know what to think. If there was a person that actually turned into a werewolf, this was a fairly populated area. Cooley Lake Road, Long Lake, Commerce Township, or he could have lived over in White Lake, 1996. If anybody is listening to that, they know the area, they know people down there. Somebody must have seen that big, gigantic animal. And if the animal did turn into a man, obviously the man wasn't clothed. I think of Bill Bixby, the Incredible Hulk. He always managed to keep his pants on, even though he exploded from little Bill Bixby to the big guy. I remember seeing the man. I remember knowing he didn't have a shirt on, but I don't know what he was wearing on his bottom half. But if there's a naked man running around that neighborhood, somebody would have seen him. I think that's why I'm coming on this show, because I'm hoping somebody somewhere can tell me I'm not crazy and they saw something too. And that's my experience.
My paranormal experiences started about 20 years ago in San Antonio, Texas. I moved to a ranch with my boyfriend, outskirts of San Antonio, on the outside of 410 on Highway 16 South. If you go on Google Earth, you could probably find the ranch. Just it's on Highway 16 Palo Alto Road. You'll know you found the ranch when you see the big retention pond, because there's an artesian well on the property. But if you go on Google Earth and you see it's the last big house. It's sitting right in the middle of the ranch. But when I first moved there, the ranch was beautiful. It was all kinds of animals. There was Brahma cows and emus and ostriches and donkeys and black swans. It was beautiful. Now it's all run down. They sold all the animals, and I think the property's for sale. So, but anyways, it all started. I moved there. The house is like an old ranch house. It's probably like 150-year-old house. It's got tall ceilings, all hardwood floors. It's got like 2 bedrooms, and then there's a bathroom in the middle and the big living room in the back, the dining room and the kitchen. And the way it was situated, we would use the back door as the main entrance. Seldom use the front door. So my first experience started with everything was good the first few months when I lived there. After a while, I started hearing someone walking around the house. The floorboards would creak. I would also see on occasion shadow figures, but only in my peripheral. I would be sitting there and I'd see something on my peripheral. I'd turn and and then there would be nothing there. And usually that would happen when I was alone in the house. At first, I didn't think much about it and just ignored it. I had a big indoor black cat at the time. And a few times when that would happen, I went looking for him, thinking he was the one making the floorboards creaking. And I'd find him sleeping and would just try to forget about it and started leaving the stereo on all the time so I wouldn't hear any noises. My boyfriend, he worked at his family restaurant every day till closing and then would drive and follow his mother home to make sure she got home. So I was usually home alone most evenings except a couple nights a week. And one evening, it was like around 8 p.m. I know it was about that time because what I'm about to tell you actually occurred 3 nights in a row. I was sitting at my desk in the bedroom, working on my computer, had the stereo on, of course, when all of a sudden I heard a loud crash in one of the other rooms. And then the cat comes running into the bedroom and goes under the bed, all scared. It was so loud, as if a large piece of furniture had fallen on the floor. It scared me so bad that I immediately called my boyfriend at the restaurant and told him about it. He told me to go check it out, so I did with him on the phone. I checked it out. I went in every room, the dining room, the living room, the other bedroom. Didn't find no disturbance. So I was pretty freaked out. And I wanted him to come home right away, and he told me he couldn't. So the rest of the evening, I just stayed in the bedroom the rest of the evening until he got home. After that, a few months later, I brought my daughter to the house to live with us. She was pregnant at the time with my first grandson. Everything went well with no incident until my grandson was born. It started with me finding my cat laying on the floor in front of my daughter's room in the doorway, staring in eerily in the middle of the night. He would do this every once in a while, and that used to creep me out. It was strange and spooky because this cat usually slept on my bed and not on the cold hardwood floor. There's also a couple nights when the baby woke up crying hysterically, and it took us a while to get him back to sleep. After the second time that happened, my boyfriend went to the church and brought some holy water home. He went room to room, sprinkling holy water and reciting the Lord's Prayer. So after that happened, the incidents pretty much died down until my grandson was like I guess he was like 1, old enough to sit in a high chair. Me and my daughter, we'd find him staring up, looking at someone we couldn't see and just laughing and carrying on and kicking and just laughing at some unseen person or whatever. We would ask him who he was looking at, and he would just carry on kicking and laughing and having a good old time visiting with someone who we couldn't see. A few months later, my daughter, she moved back to Houston. So everything was pretty quiet there for a while until a few months went by. And then one Sunday morning, my boyfriend was off. He was asleep. He was asleep in the bedroom, and I was in the bathroom, and I had just lit a candle, and I didn't have any lighter, so I lit a candle with a match, and I threw the matchstick in the garbage can, which was near the wall. I guess I didn't put the match out good. After that, I went out on the porch because we had a big macaw parrot on the porch. I went out there to feed the parrot, and I was probably out there maybe 20, 25 minutes with the parrot. Come back in the house, and there's smoke in the house. So I run to the bathroom, and I open up the door, and the garbage can's on fire, and the wall is starting to catch on fire right behind the toilet. So I run, I wake up my boyfriend, I said, wake up, there's a fire in the bathroom. And he gets up and we open the door to the bathroom and we look in. All of a sudden, and we're standing there in the doorway, the hose to the toilet springs a leak and starts spraying and puts the fire out. Just like that. And it was a huge fire on the wall. The fire was almost all the way up to the ceiling. And the spraying from the toilet just put the fire out, which was pretty crazy. The next incident, I mean, I lived there for 19 years, but some time went by and there was like one evening when there was a huge storm. It was all over on the Weather Channel and everything. It was like, they were talking about it on the TV. There was a huge storm headed our way. And I was out and about visiting friends, and then I saw that on TV, so I decided I better get back to the ranch. So my boyfriend was at the restaurant. So I get home, the storm hits, and it's blowing and raining out there. I had a cordless phone at the time, and like 3 lamps in the bedroom. And then all of a sudden, there was like a loud thunder noise, and the electricity goes out. And you could hear the cordless phone made like a beep sound, and all the lights went out except the lamps in the bedroom. I had 3 light lamps on, and then the light in the kitchen. They kept glowing like 15, maybe 25%. They were just like glowing, which was pretty scary. So I got on my cell phone and I started calling. I called my boyfriend and he said, well, I can't leave right now. So I called a couple friends, and one friend, he was trying to like calm me down. He says, oh yeah. He goes, that's because there's probably some electricity stayed in the line. That's probably what happened. There's still electricity running through the line. That's why it's glowing like that. I got off the phone with him. I called my brother and I told my brother, you need to get over here and stay with me until my boyfriend gets home. So he said, okay, I'm coming over. Him and his girlfriend, they were going to come over to the ranch. So I decided I didn't want to stay in the house. I was going to go sit in the car. I was freaking out. So I got dressed, getting my shoes on, putting my raincoat on. I was going to go sit in the car, got all dressed. And then just as when I'm walking out of the bedroom, because it's all hardwood floors, even the kitchen had hardwood floors. I'm stepping out of the bedroom into the kitchen because I was going to go out the back door that we use. All of a sudden, there was this huge pounding underneath the floorboard, like somebody was underneath the floorboards, like with a sledgehammer, like boom, 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 right under my feet. Scared the heck out of me. And then all of a sudden, all the lights went out. They weren't glowing anymore. And I ran out of the house. And I went out there and I was sitting in the car, waited for my brother. I called him. He said, we're on our way. So anyways, when they got there, I told him, you guys aren't leaving. You guys aren't leaving till he gets home. So we got out of the cars and we went back into the house. The bedroom lamps, they weren't on anymore, but the kitchen lamp, the light in the kitchen was still glowing. It was like, it had gone out when I ran out of the house. We came back in and it was glowing again, just like maybe 15, 25%. It was pretty weird. It was really weird. Never seen anything like it. The next incident, it happened. I was home alone again. It was one evening and I had bought some new mini blinds. I was in the living room and I was trying to hang some mini blinds, and I had one of these big old cordless drills, one of those. It was like the battery was as big as a brick. And I'm on a ladder. I'm not real good at hanging mini blinds. I was trying to drill a screw into the wall, and all of a sudden the drill falls. And I heard like a thump. It was like one thump. That was a big, heavy drill. I heard one thump, and that was it, just one thump. I come down off the ladder, and I can't find the drill. The drill was like gone. I couldn't find it. I didn't find that drill for 2 weeks later. It was way in the corner in the living room behind a box. So that was pretty freaky. After a while, I could still hear the floorboards creaking and everything, and would see shadow figures in my peripheral. I decided I start talking to the spirits, and I would tell them, if I wasn't in the mood, I would just tell them, leave me alone. Leave me alone. I'm not in the mood right now. And then they would leave me alone. And one evening, again, I was in the bedroom working on the computer. Cat wasn't in the bedroom. He was in the other room. I'm sitting at my computer, and the spirit was in the living room, but I could hear from the bedroom. It was pretty low. And I'm just sitting there, and then all of a sudden, the mattress, like if you got a regular normal mattress, when you sit on the bed, it makes like a sound. And I'm sitting there, all of a sudden, the mattress made a sound like somebody had sat on the bed. And I turn around, and there's no indention on the mattress bed. I heard that noise, and that really freaked me out. So again, I just yelled at him. I said, leave me alone, leave me alone. And that happened 2 or 3 times. That was pretty scary. Every once in a while, I'd still see the shadow figures in my peripheral and everything. But I got used to it. Actually, I started thinking in my mind that maybe they were like friendly, and maybe when the lights had gone out in the house, that maybe, they left the lamps still, glowing, because I didn't have a flashlight, and maybe the spirits thought, we'll just leave the lights glowing a little bit, give her a chance to put her shoes on or whatever in case she wanted to go outside. That's how I figured it. So, and then they also put the fire out in the bathroom. So after a while, I was just so scared that I felt like they were friendly. They were like my guardian angels. And let me see, in 2020, my boyfriend died. He died of heart failure in July. And I continued living there till February of 2021. And I was the only one living on the ranch, because there used to be a ranch hand that lived up front. But when they got rid of all the animals, he left. And so I was the only one living there after my boyfriend died until February. Friends would tell me, how can you live out there? Aren't you scared? I'll tell them, no, I'm not scared. I wasn't scared of the spirits. I was scared of like humans maybe jumping over the gate or the fence and coming over there. But if they would have done that, I'd be ready for them. I had a loaded pistol. I did move in February 2021. So that was the end of my paranormal experiences. Haven't had any since. Just probably had something to do with that house. So that's all my paranormal experiences.
If you've had a paranormal experience and would like to be a guest on the show, please contact us by going to myparax.com. That's myparaex.com. Thanks for listening.